Welcome everybody to SA Rugby Magazine. I'm Kevin Ferguson. I've got Zellum Nell and Scott Gibbs with me. Been a bit of a break, but we're eager to discuss the Australian graveyard for South Africa. And will it be another graveyard? Listen to your show yesterday, Z. Nice. I mean, especially the rule changes.
Yeah, some interesting ones.
Well, isn't that the problem with World Rugby, is that there's always so many changes? I mean, the game is almost incomprehensible to me from when I stopped playing in '94. And there's been many rule changes since you stopped playing, Scott, in 2000s. So, we've seen the Springbok team. What do you make of that, Scotty?
Yeah, listen, I like it. I mean, just shows you the breadth of talent and the ability within the squad, the depth. I think we're all excited to see how the halfbacks are going to play. You know, I'm a big fan of Cobus Reinach. I think he brings a lot of tempo, a lot of aggression, a lot of offline running, goes havoc for back rowers, and certainly one of the key aspects for him is his broken field play. So I think that's a huge plus.
Yeah,
gives the Boks momentum, you know, because he plays in perpetual motion. And then Sacha gets his first start. We have to go back now to just look at the pieces and his involvement in the Welsh game, the 2 Ireland tests, Portuguese tests. The guy hasn't put a foot wrong. You know, everything's been deliberate, everything's been done with execution. There's been some gay abandon where he's embarrassed the opposition. And the fact is that he's just a super talented football player. So he's not going to sit in the pocket and kind of play the territorial game that is going to be an advantage for the Boks. But the fact is he's going to bring some stardust to it, and he's just going to accentuate, I guess, the talent inside and outside of him. So that's going to be a huge focus for Australia, how to contain him, because he's going to have a go. He's going to take it to the line, and he's going to keep doing that.
Yeah. So somebody that's not overrated in terms of your estimation.
No, I don't think there's any overestimation in his talent. I mean, I think he's got a huge ceiling.
Yeah.
And we've barely seen him. That's the thing. We've seen snippets of it. Yeah. Everything he's done has been with positivity, has been with his own brain. The fact is that he's beaten defenders inside and out. His spatial awareness, bringing people onto the ball and creating space for others, is a skill set that not all Bok rugby players of the past have had in abundance. So that's why I think he's a huge threat.
Yeah. And Z, what's your thoughts on that?
I think he's amazing. I mean, that first show we did of the year, I said this guy's going to have a breakout season.
Yeah,
I think he's a great footballer. Yeah. I think it's like beyond rugby. I think he's a great baller. You can
I don't think he's overrated at all. I'm just asking the question.
Yeah. No, I think it's way too early to say is he overrated, because I mean, like, he's literally taken his first steps, and there's in the, like Scotty was saying now, in what he's put out already, there's a consistency there that already puts him number one in the conversation in certain departments. Like, hasn't missed a kick, a goal. I mean, we don't have anybody else in the country doing that. So. Yeah,
look, I think there's at times when someone new comes onto the scene, you tend to put this star moniker on him, and I've seen many people cursed by that. But
I think he enjoys the weight of expectation that's on his shoulders, given his talent pool. Yes, he has to, 1, deliver on Saturday. 2, he has to put a kind of complete game together.
Yeah.
But the fact is that most tens have the tendency to go off script sometimes. Most tens lack focus at moments. But what we've seen so far is that this guy just embraces that. So for him to put a complete game in Saturday, let's say 100% attempts at goal, ticked, getting that back line fizzing, ticked, being strong in defence, which we know he is. So it's about putting that all together. And I think that's where Cobus comes in. I think those two will fizz on Saturday really well.
I tend to agree with you. My question, I suppose, is it's called a graveyard for a reason. And I think Mark went over a whole plethora of names that had gone there and come away with a beating or a loss. How much do you put in, Scott, because you played at the international level. Was there a stadium that you went to that you just couldn't win? Because
hey, listen, there was plenty of there were plenty. Hey, my boneyard of stadiums is huge. Yeah. But I mean, I look at Suncorp. Yes, it's in the heart of Brisbane. I don't know if there's anything celestial that's going on with the way it's orientated on its latitudes or whatever that the Boks just can't seem to, pick up a victory there. I think what hasn't been said is that, it is difficult to fly to Australia in the context of, we're talking about prime athletes here that are in peak physical condition. We've talked about the effects of altitude, haven't we? And teams struggling or not at altitude in Loftus, for instance. But the fact is that the jet lag does take it out of you. And, for every day that you are there before the game, it kind of takes an hour of adjustment per day. So optimally for me, I think you kind of need to be in Australia at least 12 days before the kickoff. So, your circadian rhythms, your daily routine has to be around what time is kickoff. So you build up to that. So that's the time where you train and prepare. So you kind of get your body into feeling that when when it comes anthem time, that you're not there yawning because, jet lag is still a part of your daily routine. That said, Suncorp, 50,000 sellout. Why can't the Boks win there? Absolutely ludicrous, isn't it?
It is.
And the fact is that, I think Boks are heavy favourite for this rugby championship, no doubt. But history tells us since Tri-Nations that New Zealand have won 20 titles, Australia and South Africa have won 4 apiece. Since the rugby championship, it's been 8 titles to the All Blacks and 1 apiece for the Wallabies. So this shows you that the Boks are not as good away from home as they should be. But when you look at this squad, when you look at the assembly of the greater 45 and the depth, and Zelly mentioned the word anonymity yesterday, I think the Wallabies fans really need to know who we are and what we're about. And this is the challenge that Schmidt has in front of him, is bringing cohesion, a collective messaging, so they're on the same page, they're understanding, and that has to be underpinned by great physical condition and an intensity that you can live in this kind of competition, which is the rugby championship. So there's a lot of variables for Australia to get things right, to really put a dent in the Boks onslaught this year. It can be done, and I think Schmidt was the original architect that put a foundation in Islands rugby that we've seen that's kind of just being accentuated and taken it to a different level with Andy Farrell. So I think he knows and he has the tools to unlock a victory on Saturday, and I think there's a couple of key parts where I think they need to get right. Listen, strong fundamentals are the bedrock of international rugby. Scrum and line-out. We know that that's not a strength for Australia rugby at the moment. But that said, I think there's enough shapes that they can create in the middle where they will hit the middle, then come back on the short side or land the blind side, and put some runners and some energy in there that I think can keep the Boks, questioning. And I think he'll target the outside centre, the 15-metre channel. I think he'd put a lot of pressure and a lot of shapes at Jesse Creel for him to narrow his defence. So I wouldn't be surprised if this Australia side come out and put a really good performance this Saturday and challenge the Boks. But I think, I know it's not one on paper, but that Boks side is as strong as it gets, and it just, I think with all these new key pieces as well,
gets better and better.
It should be a Bok victory, and it should be a dominant Bok victory, and nothing less will suffice.
Well, we'll get your prediction soon enough. Z, what do you think? I mean, because for me, there's got to be something for it being a graveyard, but I don't see. I think you're looking at a cyclical time for Australian rugby, And I can't name many of the players on the team.
Nobody can.
And
Not even Joe Schmidt.
And you've got Falau that's injured. Who's the other lad that's
Yeah, Tupo's out. Daniela Tupo's just pulled out. The tight head.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they've got injuries. And I've heard they're unbeaten under Joe Smith. Yeah, they're unbeaten against Wales at home. They're unbeaten against Georgia.
They're in the new normal, Kev. They're in this is their new normal now. They obviously got the British and Irish Lions tour next year.
Yeah.
They need to build rhythm and momentum. And Smith needs to be crystal clear with his selection pool and his execution. Otherwise, you're just going to keep sweeping the problem under the carpet. So, I think they have to be far more aggressive. They have to find efficiencies. They have to be a lot more effective. And in the effort areas, which is the breakdown and the collision, they need to ramp that up considerably.
Z, what's your take on I mean, you had a great show with Mark yesterday talking, and Mark, I couldn't believe, I looked at the list he was showing, and it was crazy, but I can't believe he read every name.
Every single one. Apparently there's some more they didn't even include. Yeah.
And hopefully there's no more after the weekend.
Yeah, so my take on it is, Kev, that, and I alluded to it in the show, and Kobus Reiner basically confirmed it in an interview. I think the Boks were guilty of overlooking Australia because inevitably they were on their way to New Zealand via Australia for most of the years in professional rugby. In Tri-Nations and Rugby Championship, you played home and away. And so inevitably you were on your way to play the All Blacks. All Blacks were top tier nation, world beaters, world champions between 2011 and 2019. Mm-hmm. So that was front of mind, and I wonder whether the Wallabies weren't almost an afterthought. And Reinach basically confirmed that tacitly, in that the Wallabies, there was preparation, but it was always looking ahead. Look, we've got the All Blacks. And I mean, that doesn't excuse it. Also, doesn't explain why Brisbane and not Sydney, etc.
Doesn't excuse it, but it is an excuse.
But it is a reality, I think.
Yeah.
And so I think there's also been timing has been an issue. I think when the Boks were at their lowest in the 2016s and 17s could explain that one. I was there in 2013 when they won, and that team was certainly not flying high at the time. And they came away with an epic win with some players that you'd be surprised were Springboks. So, I think unless the Wallabies are sitting on a generation of youngsters coming through, because we don't know these kids, but unless some of these players are the next world-class Wallaby side, like almost what Jake did after Rudolph Straley's era, when he brought through those 2002 champion juniors, and people were like, who are these guys?
Well, I think we would have, sorry, Z.
Yeah.
I think we would have seen some of that during the Wales and Georgia tests, and I didn't see much.
I mean, I don't know. It's a new coach, it's a new era. You've had the Eddie Jones ups and downs. The fact
But you're
that
an Australian fan, aren't you?
I'm not saying I'm an Australian fan. I'm just saying Dave Rennie beat the Boks with these players.
Yeah.
So it's not beyond the realms of possibility. I'm saying that if this team is going to, the only way that they beat the Boks this weekend for me is if this team is going to grow into a team that can actually contest for the trophy in Australia in 2027. Because if it's not that team, they're going to get pumped.
Well, this is where I'm heading towards. It's when where are they ranked in the world?
Low.
Yeah, and they're struggling to be a top six side, aren't they?
Yeah.
So, and
Yeah. See, I think that sometimes we can talk about the graveyard, we can talk about Joe Smith and his success at Ireland, which is undoubted. But you've got to have the horses and the right tools to make an impact. I don't see this game being any way other than one-way traffic. And one of you lads, I think, said about focus. I think it was you. And it is because South Africa is focused on this game.
100%.
I've never seen them really this focused on an Australian game.
I feel sorry for the Wallabies because that last test against Ireland, where we got pushed around in our kitchen by those guys, is going to have these guys charged up to prove a point at a place where they're told they can never win.
Yeah, I think back to your point, Zelly, is that for a long period, I think the Boks never really got too excited about facing the Wallabies, because it was just a path to the bigger challenge.
They'd either played New Zealand or were playing New Zealand.
And they're a Boks that are classic heavyweight. They want to be in that ring. They want to be going toe to toe for 12 rounds. They love the bigger challenge, and it's almost like, do we really have to get up for this? But now, as you say, the focus is on the past disappointments and putting that to bed.
Yeah.
And my point here, pieces and weapons. We talk about it every week. Pieces and weapons.
How's it
The Wallabies just haven't got either.
Yeah. But to your point, Scotty, about the focus thing there, with the Wallabies, the one thing that you have to be on point on with them is you have to be mentally focused, because they can't necessarily front up against you physically, but one thing they can do is technically they can try to lure you out of how you want to play and almost dupe you into doing what they're doing. And I think that's the sting in their scorpion tail.
Well, and that's been the undoing of many Boks sides is like trying to get them off script, and trying to get them into a tussle where bravado overtakes the kind of clarity of thought, and then they get sucked into a game, and then the ascendancy switches. So, and that's where I think tempo is key for Australia. But I mean, listen, they have to play the field. They have to dominate the minutes as well, because if the Boks get any sniff of a stranglehold where they retain possession, keep ball control and move down the field, and then also amplify the simplification of the game, catch and drive, punishing the scrums, run straight hard, tackle hard, then those basics and fundamentals is going to bear so many fruits for the Boks. They could steamroll them, no doubt.
Yeah, let's chat a little bit about the laws, because I was laughing at you, and just laughing at the state of world rugby when it comes to all these laws. It really is a joke. If you want to grow a game, stop changing the rules every year or every second year.
Can you imagine being an American fan and every year that you think about supporting rugby, you've got to learn 5 or 6 new variations?
It's unheard of. It's unheard of in England.
So where do the rule changes, you think, potentially trip up the Boks' appreciation for this fixture on Saturday?
I don't know whether any of them really affected massively. The one that caught my eye that I think is interesting is where the defending scrum half has to stand now, and how I think defence coaches may opt to use that law change. The rest of them is pretty much semantics. It surprises me that we're going to give a kicker 60 seconds to shoot at goal, but 8 fat forwards have got 30 seconds to run to a scrum. That surprises me.
Maybe there should be a bit of common sense if there's a...
Common sense? Are you mad?
No. Yeah. But I mean, maybe I don't know. Again, it's all interpretive. Is there a clock that is there a clock that resets?
It's the ethereal rugby clock.
Okay, yeah. I just wish they'd stop changing the rules.
Totally.
There was not much wrong with the game in the 90s. And now,
we need to go more towards that Italian game where there's a ball and then everyone in the town is in the sandpit and you have to move the ball. Like, let's work towards that, not away from it.
No. Didn't you win that 1 year?
That's why my nose is so skewed. But Scotty, that defending scrum off thing, like, I'm wondering whether the defence coaches don't just plug that guy into the back line.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, he steps into a pocket, or he just, these are interesting nuances to it, but the fact is that we're not creating. Rugby was always an attritional game. Is that obviously, the later in the game there was fatigue played a part in it, and errors would come into it, and it got a little bit more exciting. Now that we don't have that, because essentially people, best part of the pack get 45 to 50 minutes. They've done a full shift, and then you got fresh legs coming on, and it just feels more relentless in that way. I mean, I'm not sure you get the benefit out of what the spirit of the game is about, isn't it? But
you touched on this earlier, Scott, and can you just what would Australia have to do to compete, let alone win? I mean, compete.
Well, again, they just have to find efficiencies. Effort areas have to be huge, so breakdown and at the collision. I mean, it's not an easy game plan, because soon as your opposition get front foot ball and quick go forward ball, then it's almost impossible to stop that juggernaut. But the fact is, if they can stop them on the line, if they can upset them at the breakdown, and get some turnovers, if they can input tempo into their game, if they can control the territory and also the clock, then it puts the onus on the Boks to play or play catch up. And it's not a place where the Boks really sit comfortable. They like to be in the driving seat, controlling the clock, the tempo, all of those key aspects. So I think the Boks will be just, I think they will be too big. They should revert back to their fundamentals and basics, because that's where a team like Australia will not be able to contend with them, I don't think.
Yeah. So the bookies say that South Africa will win by 8.5. It's impossible, but that's the.
I'm very surprised that it's that low.
Well, considering the last two games, where South Africa beat them 43-12 and then 24-8.
If it wasn't for the Brisbane factor, like I said, I think the Boks should be 25-point favourites in this game.
I tell you an interesting aspect, maybe from a coaching perspective, and this has nothing to do with the hubris of Rassie or whatever, is how much credence he does give to the opposition and the coaching and the unknown, and how you legislate that. Because a lot of coaches say, well, no, as long as we get our game right, then we don't need to worry about that. But I think you do have to pay some type of homage to the Wallabies, because you kind of want to control the piece. You want to control the narrative, the speed and the physicality. Once that gets upset, Sonny, a lot of the players start looking around, and then it becomes more individualistic. I think that's where sides of kind of caused the Boks some harm in the past, is where they just go within themselves and start playing one out football, where I think they need to keep their shape and their patterns, and I think that's down to leadership, and that's why I love this axis at 9 and 10, because I think those two cats are cool in the gang, super calm, play with a ferocity and with an eye on the game, so they constantly surveying where the space is, and then engineering their forwards and putting them in good advantageous positions to bring the best out of them. So even if the Boks at 80% on Saturday, I still think they're 12 to 15 points better than the Wallabies. But the fact is, I think they should be more than that. And I think a disciplined, well-focused Springboks, with the caliber of side that they've put out, with the weapons they have, the relievers coming off the bench, I think it should be, an easy day at the office, made to look hard, but easy, because it's too talented of a side not to fizz on Saturday.
Well, I suppose all things being equal, so as long as there's no...
Well, you talk about the intangibles, a yellow card or a red card or an incident or
Well, it's the red card that's more of a bigger intangible, isn't it? Because I believe that now if you have 2 yellow cards, you rarely see that in a game. So I don't know what that rule change does. Because to me, it should be, if there's a red card, then have the 20 minutes off with the guy. I don't know what... Anyway, I won't get on to the frustrations of the World Rugby, but... to me, all things being equal, and what I mean by that is no red card, so there's not another controversial red card for either team, but specifically the Boks, because the Boks are certainly in the ascendancy. And there's no unbelievable magic performance by some Australian guy that I don't know about, that shoots the lights out. Then I think the Boks are 20-point plus winner here. So the 8.5 points in betting offered by Betway, to me, is a great bet. And you can actually get close to 30% return on your money for just an outright win for the Boks. That's like crypto money.
That's easy money, man. Wow. So although we are assuming the Boks are going to come out and play Bok rugby, powerball, they could come out and try be Australia. And then
why would they want?
Well, they try to do that against Ireland in the first test. So it depends on how far they're going to stretch their legs with this expansive game that they're experimenting with. And if they do, there will be much less continuity in that plan than they have
But I think there's either the front, they'll get front forward ball. They'll dominate physically up front.
But you could dominate up front and you could make 10 meters on your first 5 phases, and if I intercept the ball and run it 80 meters for a turnover try, none of that means anything. So it depends, and those mistakes, that transition comes from a lack of familiarity. It depends how
As
that.
Bruno once said, there's always one.
I'm just letting you know, it's possible.
And I know you'll always let me know. But Scott, give me a prediction. You're learning about betting and
yeah, well,
handicap.
you know, as me, I'm not a betting man. I don't understand the kind of the language of betting, but I do see this as a kind of clear 12 to 15 point Boks victory. And I'm baking in, the Suncorp 50,000.
Weather conditions. Sorry, 21, 22 degrees, 16 to 17 kilometer an hour wind, bit cloudy, sunny.
Air pressure?
Yeah. 64 humidity. So the conditions are there for a good rugby, like good rugby conditions.
Nothing the ref can't interfere with.
Who is the ref?
The ref is Luke Pearce from England.
Okay, he's good. He's
Good
good
ref.
Good ref. Yep.
Great ref.
Yeah.
I think he lets things go. I mean, I think one of his strong characteristics that he doesn't over referee. And that's a good aspect from a referee because, you can make a good game better, but you can't make a bad game good. And that's so. I think it's great for both sides because that Australia will try and play. They will throw some shapes at them. It's whether they can contain the kind of physical onslaught. And the fact is that if everybody's shaken off what that Australia, the Irish 2-test weekend looks like. Little bit of disappointment at the end. Didn't play enough maybe later on in the game. As the fact is that I think Sacha at the helm there's no. I'm here to bring a complete performance for this side.
Yeah.
And I demand and I dictate that you follow me. I'll put you in the areas that you need to do, but you got to up the work level. You got to up the focus. And I think defensively too, they got to go up a couple of notches. The Boks if they really now put a kind of little thumbprint on this early rugby championship thing because the two big games, the next 2 big games coming up here in South Africa are going to be the All Blacks. So they're going to want to make a statement, and also Rassie has a little bit more clarity in his understanding of who works best in certain positions.
Yeah, and without a doubt, Scott, I think that the preparation with Ireland is certainly more of a test than it was for Australia. But I think every team will challenge Australia that's in the top 8 now. I mean, I don't think there's any easy games for them. And so give me a prediction, a score, Scott.
Yeah, I'm going to go Boks 30, Australia 15.
30-15. There you have it. Zellum?
I predicted Boks 31-19.
31-19. Okay, my prediction is...
Wallabies by 3.
My prediction is 42-20 for the Springboks. I think the conditions lend themselves to decent rugby.
I say 15 because I think if you average out the last 4 games that the Boks have played, and it's been good in parts, it's been amazing in certain parts, it's also been disappointing. But the average, they've conceded over 20 points again. I mean, if you average, it's 26. But I mean, against Ireland, 20 points. Now you can't leave that. That's too much to leave on the table. And I'm not saying Australia are anywhere near the animal that Ireland are. But as a fact, home field advantage, 50,000, Suncorp, weather good, great referee to play, and Australia have to play because they can't arm wrestle the likes of the Boks. They've got to find substance in their game, and they've got to find shape and style and an identification now that takes them, through the series and through the rugby championship.
Yeah, I mean, when you're looking at it from a handicapping point of view, when I handicap all my stuff and then see if the bookies have got it wrong. which they do every once in a while. But you look at Wales versus Australia, 40-6, Wales beat them at the World Cup. 36-28, an 8-point victory for Australia at home.
Second test in Melbourne, a place where test match football has always kind of mired itself in terrible performances. The weather was awful. The wind was coming in sideways. The ball was wet, and yet there was a hatful of tries scored by both teams.
That was very unusual.
Yeah, and and the fact is that even Wales made the Wallabies line out and their line out defence look, third rate.
Yeah.
So stuff like that you can't really overturn in a short period of time. So there's so much for the Wallabies to get right on the day for them to really, challenge the opposition.
Well, there should be some improvement, but this Boks team is, like you say, it's getting better and better.
And they should be salivating about this opportunity now. And it's not about getting rid of the kind of the hysteria that Suncorp is some stadium that we can't win. And that's kind of bullshit, isn't it?
Yeah.
The fact is that you believe in your talent, you believe in the messaging, and you put complete faith in your new number 10 to drive the bus, and to drive the bus hard and long all throughout the game, and demand nothing but excellence for 85 minutes.
Yeah, I think that, again, the key word there is focus. They have that this time. I get a sense that New Zealand aren't an afterthought or a team. They're preparing. There's 3 weeks to go before they play New Zealand. So this time they've definitely focused on this. They've been there for how long now, Zels?
Yeah, I got there last week.
Yeah,
So,
they're 7 or 8 days there. That'll certainly help with the acclimate. Sorry. So I would be disappointed if I didn't see a 20-point game, a difference in the score. It's like almost that stage where, from a South African point of view, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. If you only win by 5 or 6, you're going to come in for criticism. 20 is probably the benchmark here that I would look for. So 42-20 for me.
30-15 for me.
31-19.
31-19. Well, let's see what happens. Good luck, Boks. Good luck, Australia. And
should be a great test match.
Should be, but 6:30. A
little bit salty for you, is it?
Imagine warming up for a test match at 5 o'clock in the morning. Jeez.
That is a bit salty for me. But I'll be up. Or just getting to bed.
It's the bin man shift, isn't it?
It's the bin man shift. Yeah. Well said. Anyway, folks, enjoy. Like and subscribe. Enjoy the game this weekend, folks. And thanks, Scotty. Thanks, Zell. Cheers, man.
No.